Have Albion just bottled their final chance of reaching the playoffs?
You're watching the Baggies Podcast YouTube channel. For match previews, match day vlogs, match reactions, and more, make sure to subscribe to the Baggies Podcast YouTube channel.
The answer is yes, they probably have. Welcome back to the Baggies Podcast YouTube channel, giving you all the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. My name's Louis Bent. We're back again today with another match reaction for you, talking West Brom 2, QPR 2, and what a poor game, what a poor performance that was from Albion. We're going to be talking today, looking through, kind of sifting through that performance in a sort of instant manner as I've just got back from the game, talking through each player's performance, giving my general thoughts, and of course answering that question whether Albion have bottled their final chance at the playoffs. But before we crack on, make sure you subscribe, make sure to comment your thoughts on the game below. But yeah, let's start off with that performance. I mean, let's talk through the journey of the game first and how that went. Of course, Albion started off in rampant fashion, really scoring 2 goals within 3 minutes, 10th minute and 13th minute. Brandon Thomas Asante firstly bundling the ball over the line from a John Swift free kick. Then Shemi Ajayi was found kind of at the back post on his own from a John Swift shot, which was parried out by the goalkeeper. Fell to Ajayi, who just managed to kind of loop the ball in whilst he was kind of on the floor. So yeah, that was 2-0 after 13 minutes. Then Lyndon Dykes hit back with a eerily and kind of scarily easy goal for QPR as Ilias Chair floated the ball into the edge of the area, and Lyndon Dykes seemed to just ease past Ajayi, heading the ball and looping it into the top corner. Then, of course, the big goal which really changed the game, 2-2 for QPR, which was Chris Martin's goal. Josh Griffiths received a back pass from Eric Peters, a little overhit, I must say, but Griffiths took a touch, kind of bobbled, then he came to clear it, and by that point Chris Martin had already charged him down and the ball nestled into the middle of the goal, an empty net, I must say, as well. So that was the way the game went. In terms of stats, Albion had 58% of possession, QPR with 42%. Albion had 1.66 expected goals to QPR's 1.21 expected goals. 12 total shots to QPR's 14. 2 big chances for each side. So yeah, what essentially we've learned from today is that Albion are very unlikely going to make the playoffs. They're 11th place now, 5 points away from the playoffs. As we said, we could have been in within the 3 points and that all-important game in hand against Sheffield United of the playoffs, but now 5 points, 11th place, and really slipping away from that playoff area. And you know, I remember thinking about kind of looking through the fixtures and looking at those teams that have very little to play for. Those teams included the likes of Swansea City and Stoke, who are only 3 or 4 points away from us at the moment. So yeah, in terms of that performance against QPR, of course, down there fighting for their lives, looking for every point at every opportunity, I thought was a pretty dismal display. As bad as Rotherham, but I don't think QPR were quite as up for it as Rotherham, if I have to be honest. Thought Rotherham wanted it a little bit more. Thought QPR came into the game when they scored the goals. They felt a bit of confidence from that. Maybe a little bit, you know, I've seen Gareth Ainsworth's quotes after the game on my way back today, and that was kind of talking about how QPR kind of fed off the bad atmosphere at the Hawthorns. They could feel the crowd starting to get on Albion's players' backs. And yeah, I thought the performance was pretty dreadful. I thought midfield was particularly poor area for us today. I thought we lost that battle particularly especially in the first half, really. I thought Gardner, Hickman, Chalabar both had pretty poor games. John Swift just in front, although had a hand in a couple of the 2 goals, thought once again was pretty off the pace. Yeah, we'll kind of run through each player's performance in a little bit, but I thought, you know, in terms of the overall performance, thought it was flat, lethargic. Very slow build-up, but in my personal opinion, I can deal with a slow build-up. I can deal with most styles of play as long as the players are giving 100%. They're matching the opposition or beating them in terms of effort and application. I can deal with it. I can deal with styles of play, different styles of play, whether it be long ball, short passing, really patient, you know, whatever it is. I can deal with it as long as, firstly, the results are good, and secondly, the players are putting in those that effort, and secondly, the results are coming out the other end. But for me, Albion bottled that game today. You know, to be 2-0 up against a side who've only scored once in the last 4 games, I think is absolutely criminal. I think that Albion's players didn't put enough enough application into the game. I feel like the injuries haven't helped, of course. That that goes without saying. They've had massive injuries. Key players: Dara O'Shea, Okay Kushlu, Alex Palmer, Matt Phillips, Grady Dingan are all pretty key players in the squad. All injured. Jason Malumbi as well in there, who came back today. But ultimately, you can't excuse a performance like that. And ditto Rotherham as well. I thought that was just as bad, and I feel like that's where Albion really need to sort themselves out. They've got this squad, which I think is actually a decent Championship squad, but once you start to break into that first 11, you're back to those same players who kind of let you down last season when you were looking for playoff positions. You were getting into late April, and you still could have made the playoff positions last campaign, and they bottled that opportunity, and now you're heading down to these kind of bare bones of the squad. You're ending up having to play players like Carla and Grant. You're ending up having to play players, who let you down last season. And I think that's the case again today. Josh Griffiths, of course, we'll go through each of the players really. Josh Griffiths in goal for me was okay. I thought he made a couple of errors with his feet, struggled to kind of deal with QPR's high press. Of course, he had Lyndon Dykes, he had Chris Martin charging him down at quite a few opportunities. But the most worrying thing with that mistake is, firstly, with Griffiths, is that nobody came to reassure comfort, tell him to get his chin up, whatever you want. I thought that was the most disappointing thing for me from an Albion perspective. And I think to see no real leaders in that squad going, patting him on the back, whatever, saying, keep your chin up, whatever that happens, whatever footballers end up saying to each other, I thought that was really poor from Albion's players. And I think that disappointed me a lot. I've criticised the squad and, over, the past 12 months or so, saying how the leaders in the squad have really been lacking. And I think that was really evident for me today. I thought if Dara O'Shea was on the pitch, maybe he would have. I thought if Kushlu was on the pitch, perhaps. But there's a captain out there in Connor Townsend today who was on the pitch as well. Eric Peters was the one who kind of played him a bit of a hospital pass in the first place. He's 34 years of age, wealth of experience at Premier League level, very experienced. Didn't go over to him. Thought maybe Jed Wallace, to some respect, might have gone over. But ultimately, that's where I'm disappointed, because a young lad has made a mistake. 21-year-old goalkeeper is going to make mistakes, and has made one, and a pretty glaring one. It's cost Albion 3 points today, if we have to be honest. And that is where you need your leaders to step in and come and comfort him. As for the back four, Darnell Furlong right back, I actually thought had a pretty decent game. If I'm to be completely plain, I'm never been a huge fan of Furlong, but I thought he actually was all right today. Same with Semi Ajayi. Thought he had a much better game in comparison to his Rotherham game, where he was really poor. Eric Peters, I thought that was probably his darkest hour in an Albion shirt. Got some real stick from the crowd for constantly going backwards. And as I said, I don't necessarily mind the going backwards, as long as that invention is there in the final third. And I think that Peters took a bit of flack for that today, but I thought his performance overall was pretty poor. I thought he misjudged quite a few balls, got caught in the middle of a couple of interceptions that he could have made. Connor Townsend, I thought was fairly poor again today. Had a chance which went just wide, just in front of myself, just in front of the Smethwick end, where he just glanced the ball wide with a sort of side-footed finish. Midfield, as I said, that is where the game was lost today, in Garden Hickman and Nathaniel Chalabar. Garden Hickman I thought was slightly worse than Chalabar, if I have to be honest. Quite a few misplaced passes, really struggled to play through QPR's press, as did the entire back four, to be honest. I thought Furlong was the only one who looked like he could really break through it with kind of carrying the ball. Chalabar, he's just very slow, I think, is what I'm going to go for with him. I think he's just very he seems a little half a yard off every single time. Every time the ball comes in, every time there's an interception or a tackle to be made, he just seems a little half a yard off. And yeah, I thought he was a poor performer today, although better than his performance against Rotherham. That sort of three behind Thomas Asante. Thought Albrighton wasn't as bad as I've seen him in recent weeks. Did put in a couple of good deliveries, but ultimately there are times where you need a Premier League winner to kind of take the ball and put in a good pass or a solid switch of play to get Albion out of a bit of pressured situation, which QPR were pushing them into, and they didn't. And Albrighton didn't. It was kind of a lofted ball forward, a little hopeful one over the shoulder of his shoulder kind of thing. Swift, I thought, although created a few chances, had a hand in both goals, as I said, with firstly the assist for Thomas Asante's, but also the shot that parried out for Ajayi, I thought was missing a lot of the time when you really needed him. There were a couple of times where he had the chance to clear the ball on the edge of his own penalty area and he left it for somebody else, and I thought, yeah, take a bit of responsibility. There was need to take a bit of responsibility. Jed Wallace, I struggle with Wallace at the moment. I think he's dropping quite a few disappointing performances. I've heard some very honest words from him on the way back on BBC WM saying that Albion have bottled it, and it would be unjust if they were to make the playoffs, which is, at least he's honest and at least he recognises that, but I think he's not been great. He's had to play from the left at times, but yeah, I think it's disappointing to see his performances kind of dwindle because he was Mr. Consistent at the start of the season. Thomas Asante, I think, is the player that comes away with the most credit from today. Obviously, scored his goal, did his best with the QPR defence. 3 massive centre-backs in Leon Balogun, Rob Dickey and Jimmy Dunn, at right centre-back. So I thought that he did his best there, and I thought he put in a good shift. Rogic, I think, made a couple of good touches when he came on, just didn't impact the game as much as we'd hoped. Same with, Grant, I thought came on and was a little bit anonymous. Malumbi, it was nice to see him back in the side. Don't get me wrong, but he didn't really have very much time. DK, I thought, should have come on before Grant, to be honest, and then should have put Thomas Asante on the left, or maybe them both up front together. But that's me going through the team. I mean, really disappointing performance. As I said, I can't really reiterate that as many times as I have, but it was disappointing today, and I feel like Albion have missed a massive opportunity to not only just gain ground over this Easter, but to get in the playoffs. If they'd have won both their games, they'd be in the playoffs, and that is the most disappointing and disheartening thing to me, is that you're playing teams at the bottom who you'd have put away comfortably during the start of Corbrand's reign. I think that the players are starting to let the manager down, and that's the disappointing thing, because we've seen it time and time again. I can't help but feel if these injuries hadn't happened, you may be seeing a different Albion in there, who maybe with players who don't let the manager down as often as the group that were on the pitch have today. So, yeah, disappointing, dismal is what I'd use to describe it. Make sure you drop your comments down below. That's all we've got time for in this match reaction. Make sure to sum it up down in the comments section below if you watched from home today. Subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching this match reaction. Make sure to keep your eye out for the match day vlog, which will be out tomorrow at some point. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.